My name is Kym Gouchie, and I am a member of the Lheidli First Nation, and I also have roots in the Secwepemc and Cree communities, and I am a singer-songwriter. The song that I had chosen for Rhythms of the Land was a song that's been sitting and waiting for a long time. It was a dream, actually. The song was Atsu Shun. Atsu Shun is in the Dakat language, which is the language of this territory, the Lheidli. Atsu means grandmother, and Shun is song. And the reason I named it that was because at the time I was working with my grandmother, Mary Gouchie, who's now in the spirit world, and I had gathered a lot of recordings of her telling stories and sometimes translating lyrics for me into Dakat. And that song was something that she wanted me to sing about, and it was about being out on the land, about hunting, about fishing and picking berries, and it was exactly what I wanted. And so we worked very closely and collaborated on that. And so Atsu Shun, Grandmother's Song, is the song that was chosen for us to sing out at the ancient forest, and it was magical. Atsu Shun is a song that is the first song that I've ever written in my ancestral language, and it's the first song that I've ever sang in my ancestral language. So it's been my anchor. It's been how I've learned how to pronounce and enunciate words. There's been a few variations of it. I've recorded it before and had to re-record it because of mispronunciation. And when you're working with your ancestors through recordings, it's hard to differentiate and to really hear sounds and vowels and such. So I would really love for this song to be able to be an inspiration for people who are working on learning their language for the first time, or they're coming back to the language, to know that it's a journey and it's never going to be perfect. Like, there's so many differences in dialects, and I've learned that on this journey. And so I would hope that when people are listening to this song, that they're going to really appreciate the journey that I've been on in learning my language as an adult. So that's a big part of this. And also the fact that it was there's this generation of my family members that are also included throughout the learning of this song. And on the actual recording, the one that's on my album, my grandmother's voice starts the song. So I had a recording of it, and we took it into the studio. It was just on a CD, and the studio didn't even have a place to put the CD. So my friend Elijah went out into his shed or wherever and brought out this ghetto blaster and dusted it off and, grabbed the right chords and plugged it in. And then when my grandmother's voice came into the studio, it was like we all were in tears because it was so beautiful. It was as though she had just entered the space. And that song, this song, does that for me every single time I hear her voice. And it's really been beautiful for my family, because now, my grandmother's been gone for a lot of years now, and so whenever somebody wants to just feel that connection, they put on the song, and then there she is. And so there's a lot of layers of beautiful gifts within this song. And I also, on the album, included my great niece as she repeats the English words in the song. So it's like bringing language into the present moment and for future generations. Language, like the journey of learning, like going back to who we are and into our ancestral connections of traditions and stories and language, it's so important to us as Indigenous people. And I've heard it said many times that the language and the land are so connected, and you'll never understand your culture truly until you understand the language and learn the language, because there's often not even English words that can translate what's being said in one word in an Indigenous language, and it's quite a journey. And I encourage anybody, especially young people, you have your cell phones that has a really cool feature called a voice note recorder, and that is how I've managed, and I have tons of voice note recordings of my grandmother's voice speaking the language, and of my other mentor, Edie Frederick's voice speaking the language, and I go back to them, I listen to them all the time. And there's no reason why we can't do that. And if we were to all collectively take time to learn from it doesn't matter even if like it's Indigenous languages or from any culture, it's us taking that responsibility. And so many of our languages are in jeopardy, like mine is. The Dakat languages, there's a couple of speakers left, like fluent speakers. And there's a lot of people that are learning, and that encourages me, and I'm one of them. And so taking what I know as an artist, as a musician, and as a visual artist, I know that I can use the arts as a foundation, as an inspiration to learn and to preserve. And that's what I'm doing in this music, and that's what I've done with Atsu Shun. And even when I'm singing Atsu Shun, I'm still learning on what each one of those words means, so that I can sing it with my heart and with my soul, and I can put emotion into it, rather than just singing words that I've read on a piece of paper. I think music, because it's such a universal connection to people, and if you want to convey a message to people, music and the arts is the way to do that, because it's like you have that creative freedom to do and say whatever you want. And even with, I've written also a song in my language, in Dakat. It's the counting song. And I just had fun with it. You know, I was inspired by the chickadee song. I was inspired by piling wood in the wood box. I was inspired by the fact that I've never learned how to count as an adult. I never knew these words as a child, even though I grew up in my home with my great-grandmother who spoke fluent, the Claytley dialect fluently, and I just wasn't interested. So I'm hoping that people are going to become interested and genuinely interested as children, because often we miss it. Because it's not on our radar, it's not in our interests, so we end up not paying attention until sometimes it's too late. The ancient forest is a place within our territory that only came to my attention, I would say, roughly 10 years ago when I moved back home. And it's the only inland temperate boreal rainforest on the planet. And it's right here in our territory. And so I've been a part of the Ancient Forest Working Group pretty much since I've moved back. And so I've been very involved in the park management plan and just the preservation and the protection. It was designated as a protected park. And so I was aware of a piece of the property there in the forest that was brought to my attention by a biologist at the university here. And the ancient forest itself, which is the BC Parks, if you go to BC Parks website, it's called Chanto Wadajut, the ancient forest, which means the ancient wood. The ancient trees, is a place that once you've visited, it never leaves you. And I know that your crew can attest to that. because we went into a very sacred area. And when I saw that area many years ago, I dreamed of having some sort of artistic expression take place in that very, very sacred part of the forest. Like, the ancient forest is massive, but not all of it is protected. But it's such a special place. It's a place that I don't bring many people, and not many people know about it. So I'm super grateful, so grateful that we got to capture Atsushan in this very sacred space that I am very much looking forward to going back and visiting very soon. Since I've moved home, I moved back here to Lheidli 11 years ago. And when I lived here previous, I didn't have a connection truly to the language, which I feel interfered with my connection to the land, because so many of these places are named after, like the place names describe the land, and I never understood that. And when I moved away, I went into a program at this place in Penticton called the Inalkin Center, and it is an Indigenous training program, like, for professionals, and I spent a few years taking that program, and that's where I learned that it is so important that we as Indigenous people, or all people of all cultures, that we draw from point of origin, so that we are creating art that is authentic. And that began my journey of learning language and spending time with my grandmother and doing all of the recordings that I did, because I wanted to know who I was as a Lheidli person, as a Lheidli woman. And since I've moved back 11 years ago, I've immersed myself in all of the things and all of the places that I can to be able to learn from that authentic place. And I'm getting older. I am actually considered an elder in my community, and so I'm involved in a lot of elder type activities too, and it's just so evident to me of how our language is so endangered. And a lot of our elders don't even know the language because of residential school. And so I feel that there's even a greater importance that my generation learn and the younger generations learn, because our elders are our language keepers right now, and they're passing away at a very high rate. And we lost 2 language keepers, I think it was 2 years ago now, within 4 days of each other. It was a mother-daughter. And they were the people that we went to for translations. And then we lost my aunt just maybe a year and a half ago. She was one of our language keepers. And this is happening. It's inevitable that they're all gonna pass. And so it's up to us. It's up to us to be the ones that need to protect the language, that we need to preserve it in all the ways that we know how. And I know how to do that in music, in songs. It may not be perfect, it may not be as accurate, but it's something. And I'm trying, and I'm doing my very best to do that. And young people, especially kids, their brains are just so open and elastic. And I think as we get older, we get a little more rigid, and it's a little harder to learn. But we just gotta keep on trying.